My name is Philip W. Ganong. I practice in Bakersfield. I also practice throughout the state of California. My law practice is known as Ganong Law. We do work in federal and superior court across the state. We've tried cases in Sacramento, federal and state court, Oakland, state court, federal court, Fresno, federal court, state court, Los Angeles, federal court, state court, San Diego, federal court, state court, and state courts in Riverside, San Bernardino, Kern County. I'm sure I've forgotten some. Well, I like to go where the cases take me, and I enjoy trying cases in different venues. I tell people it's sort of like riding a different bucking horse. You might think you're good on one horse, but you get on another one and they have a different style. So judges all have different styles, and our jury veneer persons, they also come with different philosophies and different political outlooks depending upon your venue. And I find that keeps me fresh and on my toes. A long time, I've been practicing for about 42 years. I was admitted in 1979. And however, I tried my first 2 jury trials to verdict a year before that as a certified law student with the Kern County District Attorney's Office. So I've been trying lawsuits for about 43 years. I didn't actually want to become an attorney as I grew up. I thought I would be a physicist or go into medicine. But my big brother became a doctor, and I thought I would teach. Actually, I thought I was going to teach planned economies, and in order to do that, I needed to understand the tax code. So my honors professor at UC Berkeley told me I should go to law school first. And I did. And that's when I was introduced to trial practice. So after that, I was kind of like a fish with a big hook in his mouth. I became an attorney because I'm competitive. I don't like bullies. I had 2 older brothers and they weren't bullies, but sometimes their friends were. The bullies that I fight are like the insurance companies, big business, government. And because I've always rooted for the underdog, little guy or little gal, I've actually stepped into fights to break them up as a kid. And a little older, where somebody was getting more than they deserved. And I don't like to see that in this society, and I don't like to see it in the law practice. I think that I'm probably best at helping clients understand their options when they have a legal problem, helping assist them to choose what route is best for them. An example is I had a client referred to me that had been injured in a train accident. He fell off a locomotive, he went underneath it. Fortunately, he survived, but he had some pretty significant injuries. In looking at the case, I counseled him how to address the case with his employer. I also do that kind of work. I represent railroad employees who are injured on the job. And I counseled him that the best thing for him probably was to settle the case and to do so at a reasonable value. I worked with him to settle the case, and I didn't require him to sign a retainer. He never paid me a fee. He gave me thanks, and I said, that's great. In the future, if you need somebody, hope you'll remember me. About 6 months later, I got a call from him, and he'd been in a car accident and he'd suffered a pretty significant injury. So we handled his case for him. He was very happy. He then referred another client with 2 cases to me, which were against the city and county of San Francisco and then a transportation company. So that's kind of the way I look at it. As an attorney, I'm not in business to make money. I'm an attorney because it's a professional calling. It's something that bestows a service on society and the community. I love the legal system. It's not perfect. I want to work really hard to preserve it, because the civil jury trial system is really the one thing that stands in between total corruption, whether it's in business, the government, the professions, and a day of reckoning, which a jury can deliver. I'm glad you didn't ask me about my weaknesses. Well, I grew up in a family of engineers and medical people. As indicated, my oldest brother is a medical doctor. My daughter is in the healthcare profession as a respiratory therapist. My dad was a petroleum engineer, and so I kind of grew up around engineering and medicine. I think I take my interest in those things with me in the law practice. It's one of the things I really enjoy about the personal injury practice is you get to apply mechanics of injury, the literature and the science behind the injury, and the medical treatment of doctors, and roll them all up into one when you put a case on against the defendant. So I think that my strengths in understanding medicine, particularly orthopedic, spine, brain injury, helps me dig through the nonsense that many defense doctors like to put out in front of a jury to get to the truth of the matter. And also with the engineering exposure I've had, I understand how to talk about the mechanics of injury, the potential of injury developed by the forces that are involved in a fall or a car crash or some other mechanism. I think another strength I have is that I think pretty well on my feet. And a lot of times when stuff at trial comes at you unexpectedly, you need to be able to react. You can't take a times out or a do-over, and juries don't like that. I really enjoy the competition of trial. That's what keeps me up late at night or early in the morning preparing my outlines for the next day. And I think really most importantly, this is something I discovered when I was working for the DA's office as a law student trying these two lawsuits. I love being in court. I love working in front of a jury. I think that it's probably the highest privilege that could be given to anybody. I've sat in federal court listening to cross-examination, looking around, thinking that I was the luckiest guy in the world to be in court, in trial, in front of a jury, putting a case on. There's just a feeling that it's pretty hard to duplicate that. So I think the fact that I like going into the crucible, to fight for my client in front of a jury, because that's ultimately where the buck stops. And ultimately, that's where your credentials start. If you try lots of cases, if you have a good trial record, insurance companies, the industry knows that, and they will deal with you in a more fair fashion, I think. I hope, what I'd like them to know is to get to know me, they'll learn that I care about them. I care about what happens to them. In an injury case, my first inquiry is not how much money is this case worth. Of course, we have to look and be sure we've got a good liability case. But when we have an injury case, my first instinct is to focus on the client's injuries and getting them proper medical treatment. So often doctors don't talk to each other. They get narrowly focused on what they're doing, and oftentimes they miss stuff because they're not talking. So because I have a background in medicine through experience, I know how to pose the question to a physician about things that maybe they should be looking at. I also can help the client understand what is going on in their world physically and medically. And I find that when clients understand what's going on in terms of their injuries and what they're looking at, it's easier for them to come to terms with it and to move on. So I care about them and I care about their recovery first and foremost. Even though a good recovery may make for a poor outcome in terms of money on a case, money doesn't buy health. So I'd rather see the client recover and go on with their life in as much functional capacity as possible than to see them dissolve into an invalid. I'd like them to know that I am a fighter. I'm very competitive. I was in contact sports in high school and enjoyed it, did well, was competitive with my two older brothers. We have a World Cup ski racer in my family. One of my brother's sons races for the U.S. ski team, the Olympic team. I think I'm also compassionate. I understand what happens to people when they get hurt and when they lose a loved one. I've lost two kids in my experience. I've been given a lot of blessings. I've also been given a lot of challenges, and I've tried to take those challenges and convert them into things that would help me represent my client in front of jurors. So I know where people are coming from when they have a permanent injury or when they've lost a child or a husband or a wife. I've had back surgery, so I know what that's all about as well. I've had a lot of experience that I bring to the table. And I guess maybe to top that off, great experience that I have is just the experience of trying just tons and tons of cases to verdict. And that experience gives you confidence when you come into court to be able to think on your feet, do the right thing, get the right result. At the end of the day, it's all about the clients. I've had some wonderful verdicts. I've had some great results, but it's because I had great clients, wonderful clients, and I had the privilege of representing them.